right. Happy winter. This is John Chen over in Seattle, Washington, saying, oh my gosh, we're having the best tech day ever right now. You have no idea. Wait till you see some stuff we're going to do. I got a chance to meet this gentleman. He's actually calling in from Barcelona, Spain, which I loved. He told me, and he's like, I'm not sure if Google is translating the time zones correctly. And then on my side, I just had this harrowing cross-in where I was trying to put two graphic cards into a computer and like none of it worked. And so, and then we actually had to hack this interview so that we could show this way to you. And you're going to laugh about how we did that. So anyways, I want to share with you this gentleman. He's one of the founders for an Ozzo.Events, a 3D video chat application, super hyper focused on helping people socialize and network on virtual. Let's bring in the one and only Jesse Katz. Now, did this work? Oh, wait, I'm in the way, of course. Wait a minute. I told you we'd break something here. Oh, it didn't save this. Where is this? Oh, no, I got it here. Wait, watch for this. Okay, now I'm in the right place. Okay, Jesse, sorry, I was in your way.
No, hey, it's your show. It's your show. Thanks for having me on, John. Great to be here.
So, Jesse, first off, why don't you tell people a little bit about you and who you are, and then in a moment, you better tell them, where are we? Because we're totally not in what normally people see.
That's right. Thank you. Yeah. This is a pandemic project. We were all converging on a widely recognized problem, at the beginning of the pandemic, seeing that the tools that we had available to use, all the video presence technologies were really optimized for business meetings. And there was an underserved market. We found need for a way to improve the tools to socialize and network in real time in virtual space. Everything was either in a grid view where people were forced to listen to one person talk at a time, or our socializing has to happen asynchronously, like posting to message boards and social media, things like that. So this was the problem that we chose to solve, and it's been really interesting seeing how quickly things are developing in this space alongside us. The virtual meeting space is really well served in most capacities by all of the products doing webinars and event registration, and things have begun running relatively smoothly. But from our perspective, they're all similarly missing this one thing, and that's what we're bringing to market.
And Jesse, at least what we talked about a little bit in the pre-show is this, I was having this experience. I've gone to 4 in-person events this year, which is like 4 more than last year, right?
Yeah.
And we were in LA, and we were having a celebratory dinner after doing a large 240-person in-person team building event, which is what I used to do before, this little pandemic thing happened.
Yeah.
And I hope this illustrates the challenge that you're trying to tackle. So we're at the sushi restaurant. We have 9 people, right? And in the middle of the dinner, everyone's celebrating, some sake's being drank, right? And so everyone's having different conversation. And so I'm talking with my friend across the table from me, and there's 3 people to my left and 4 people to my right. And I suddenly realized, I just said to the other person, I said, can you hold on a second? She goes, what? And I go, this is the one thing you can't do on Zoom. Right? Because what happens is that we're having a conversation, and while all the audio in the room is at the same, I think what my brain, for the most part, is doing, and I'll be excited to hear what your view is on it, but when I focus on her, I'm only hearing her voice, despite hearing all the other voices, so I can focus, so I'm having a conversation between her. And then, of course, at different times of this dinner, you can shift your focus to the left or to the right. You can overhear those conversations, and you can naturally shift saying, oh, I'm interested in that, and jump over left and right. But the real challenge is, and I do think that's one of the biggest opportunities in audio, is that everyone can't talk on Zoom. We already know that. And that in the real world, this is how it's done, and it can be done, and it's done naturally because we're humans. That's what we do, and so we're able to focus and hear somebody in that conversation, all leading to all of us making different and great connections over the night building relationships. So anyways, that's my long-winded version. What is Ozzo.Events doing in this space to kind of make things happen like that? And let me know how I can show the audience how you're doing that.
Yeah, thank you so much. That what you just illustrated is a great example of a problem statement, in that what we're trying to emulate is a really complicated problem to try to solve virtually, and it's all going to come down to the execution, right? So the way that it feels to me in a virtual event where we're all stuck in a grid view is a little bit like Lord of the Flies, where you pass the conch shell around and only the person holding it can talk. So no matter how long they go on, like, you really have to step on toes to interrupt someone to take the conversation over, or no, you go first. It's the awkward etiquette of how those virtual meetings are run. And in a business setting that are run, like, they're structured and you have an agenda, it's the right tool for the job.
Sure.
But in a situation like a social situation like the dinner you just described, there are several conversations happening at a dinner table. And the issue is that if you're only relying on spatial audio, the conversations around you turn into a cacophony, kind of acoustic mud. Things quickly turn into an unpleasant amount of noise. And so what we're doing is we're going far beyond spatial audio, adding what we call layered conversations. So when you join a conversation just by proximity to people, you approach someone. Right now you see these purple rings around our video feeds. What that's doing is that's signifying that you and I are in a conversation with each other. And so that's deprioritizing the audio around us, turning the volume down on background noise. And we're optimizing the levels, hopefully, so that you can still hear those key words, like your name, for example. We've all seen the movies of someone who's on the run and under an alias, and they call the person's real name, and we can't avoid hearing our name. You're gonna turn for that kind of recognition, and so again, it's all in the execution. But these are some of the values that we're manipulating in order to try to provide an optimal experience. And so, as more people join this conversation, what will happen is that we're arranging people into a semicircle in front of us. So up to 11 people, that's you plus 10 other people, can be in any one conversation at a time. Mm-hmm. And you can have many conversations within one room. So 11 people over here, 4 people over here, 7 people somewhere else, in conversations that are adjacent to each other. And the primary thing that's solving for is to allow people to move freely between those conversations. Right. And then within a conversation at that dinner table, you can turn to the person next to you. And while the main speaker, the dominant speaker in the main conversation is talking, I could click on your video and speak at full volume without modulating the volume of my voice at all. And you will hear me at full volume, and the people at the rest of the table can continue on in the main conversation without being interrupted because they're hearing us at a reduced volume. So the inverse of what you and I are hearing is true for the rest of the table. And we can bounce around back and forth between these sidebars all evening long, jumping between conversations. And one really nice feature about it is that if enough people join any one particular sidebar, it's kind of like a game of conversational teeter-totter. Yeah. If a sidebar starts to outweigh the main conversation, it simply overtakes it and becomes the main conversation. So you never talk your way into a dead end in that sense.
It gives 2 key concepts, which is one is that user choice is so important in these social events, right? You don't like a conversation, right? You excuse yourself or you just physically move somewhere else. And it's as simple as that. There's no clicking of buttons and other things. Yeah. And so trying to get into the natural aspect, I think, is one of the important parts. And the other one is, I thought that's interesting. You're saying you and I could sidebar. And so, and not necessarily be heard, because that's really why private chat to me is so important in a current virtual meeting, is because we got to have a way, like if I lean over to you and whisper and I say, Jesse, the speaker's awesome, right? Whatever, things like that. But I don't want the speaker necessarily to hear that, right? Get a big head. And so you're saying we can sidebar in Ozzo.
Yeah, and I want to draw a distinction. I want to draw a distinction there to say that a sidebar is not a private conversation, although it is trivial for us to add that feature. So that's definitely something that's on our roadmap. And you can imagine in this implementation, the way it works currently is that if I turn to you and we engage in a sidebar, just like in real life, we're speaking at what they will hear as a reduced volume, but they can still hear us. We're still sitting right next to them. And if we're optimizing for more of like a conference or a trade show type of an environment, you and I might want to be able to have a truly private conversation without, say, a competitor overhearing us as they walk by. So rather than needing to like remove ourselves to go to another location, it's a trivial upgrade for us to add a feature that would essentially drop like a glass dome over us and allow us to have a truly private conversation that you would call something more like a whisper, I might say.
Speaking of glass dome,
point you made.
Sorry. Speaking of glass dome, we got to say hi to Joy Miller, who's joining us on Facebook Live, and a few others I see here. And for edification too, when you see my video up here in the top right where I'm floating around, this is actually not part of Ozzo. We just had to hack this for here. But normally this circle up here would be my mirror, if I got the right name. And this is where my video would be in this little oval, just so you know that. And hopefully too, in a minute here, Jesse, I'd like for us to move around and like, for instance, right now, can I, if I mouse over you, your name comes up.
That's right.
Okay, I didn't know that. Yeah. So there's that, and then I can click on you to like create one of these conversations right now.
So you can only start a sidebar if there's more than 3 people in a conversation.
Okay,
and you need to have 4 people in a conversation in order to start a sidebar. And the reason for that is that if there were only 3 people and I started a sidebar with you, it would leave one odd person out, which would be a bit impolite.
So you had to think about all these weird social situations in the digital sense, right, Jesse?
Well, you mentioned the example of how problems get solved, and the first thing to me is always, is this a problem worth solving? And the second question is, does this problem require a technical solution? And what you said about moving between conversations without any buttons really is more of a matter of etiquette than anything that requires a technical solution. So if you want to try it, you can use your arrow keys or the joystick in the bottom center of the screen to just move away from this conversation. The purple rings that are around us indicate that we're in a conversation right now. And as you back away, you can just navigate around the space, and you'll hear me get quieter as you move around and explore the space that we're in.
Yeah, like, hey, where'd he go? Wait, I got to see the back of your icon. Hold on, I got to come around the bend here. And so turn around to your right. So right there, you can see that. You see the back of his is like your profile photo. And now go ahead and rotate 180 if you can hear me. And now Jesse's live video. There we go.
And the reason for that is simply that we wanted to indicate somehow that you were looking at the back of someone. So we didn't want to show the video feed from both sides.
Yeah.
Because you need to know that someone is looking at you. But it's another one of those curious problems. Like, how do you indicate the back of someone? So we took a profile picture and turned it black and white. We played around with a lot of alternatives. I mean, even considering asking people to take a picture of the back of their heads or their butts. But these are things, some of these problems really don't need to be solved in ways that are any more difficult or technical than just something to indicate that you're not looking at someone's live video feed.
All right, here's my idea, Jesse. That would be really cool is if you could have somebody take a picture of the back and like it would be like a really cool jacket. So like, like in high school when you had like maybe a studded or like rocker jacket, that would be actually very funny. Something like that.
So you can actually do this. And this is something sort of like off of a secret menu at a restaurant. We support PNGs. So if you were to upload a profile, you can upload profile pictures in addition to taking a profile picture. And if you upload a profile picture with clear space, it will actually upload as a transparent image. So you can do some really interesting things with that, including custom jackets.
So what's great about that too, again, the audio fade out. So I'm actually an acoustical engineer too. I've actually taken a certification called Sonodcom. So I really do care about, and my dad owned, though he was a doctor, owned a recording studio. So I've grown up with audio, since I was very young. And so I love I thought it was the part that people kind of really ignored, especially stereo audio. I don't know if you have stereo audio working. Like if you move left, right, does it work yet?
That will be coming soon. We're working with a 3D audio engineer on that as we speak.
And it's somewhat not trivial, but at the end, right, it's a lot of work, and it becomes a subtlety that I think can have a great impact. Right? Again, we're used to it in the real world. And so when you get things to start to represent more of the real world, that's my hope, probably your hope and dream about creating more meaningful connections or more natural conversations, right?
Of course, yes. And, you can think about this like as analogous to a lot of first-person shooter video games in some of these ways. And we chose not to use any type of an avatar because the purpose of Ozzo is primarily to have a video presence and secondarily to be in a 3D world. But the primary purpose that the 3D world serves is to allow us to move between conversations. So the problems that we're trying to solve for, and like where I was drawing an equivalency to the first-person shooter video games, is like you have to indicate in some of these games what side someone is shooting at you from. So often you'll see a flash of color on the side of the screen that shows someone shooting at you from the left. But in some of our preliminary testing, it's really encouraging to see that you can get a great indication of somebody's calling my name from the left, and it doesn't require that kind of synesthesia to remap an audio sensory input to a visual input. Our goal is to not have to translate and require people to learn too many new things. Right now, there's no real onboarding or tutorials required to start using Ozzo. All you need to do is click a web link and start using the arrow keys to move around. Everything else is automatic and optional.
Well, do us a favor too, Jesse. Well, let's just take the next couple minutes. Show me around. In other words, walk around this space that you have for your demo, and I'm just going to try and follow you.
Sure.
You might have to do the tour guide thing and walk backwards, right?
If you'd like to follow me, I can just sort of take you through this space. You can explore this demo gallery that we have, and we can actually try going to another space if you'd like to see another room.
Oh, we can teleport? What?
Yes. So when I mentioned that we have the ability to have multiple conversations within any one room, we can also support an event with many, many rooms at one event. And what that allows us to do is to increase the capacity of an event to support very large sizes. So the capacity of any one room is a comfortable capacity is about 25 to 30 people conservatively. And the reason for that range is because it largely depends on the speed of people's individual devices and bandwidth. But what we can do is that we can interconnect many, many rooms together that we can move between like doorways or portals. And experientially, that's what it feels like, is that like you're going through a doorway. But technically what you're doing is you're leaving one event and you're joining another event, and each of those events have their own capacity. The events can get very large like that. And if you see these little discs here, these icons on the table, those represent a few different rooms that we can go to. So like if you want to click on the one on the far left that says NASA, we can take that. I'll take you in there to show you a theme that we created with Storycraft Lab for an event for NASA.
Okay, clicking in 3, 2, 1. Whoa, where are we going? Loading assets. Joining event. Oh, wow, we're in a launch. All right, let's see. Did Jesse make it? All right, for those who just joined here. Oh, there we go. Good. Jesse's here. All right.
Okay, so behind me, you should be able to see that the movie screen.
Yeah.
So we created that in order to watch a coordinated launch for the new Artemis project.
Right,
And
right.
this whole theme was created to support a virtual event in celebration of that. And Storycraft Lab created this wonderful theme that has like a personality type quiz, and then they've curated an experience to support several different personality types to engage with people through these virtual events. And you can get a sense of the types of things that we can do in here. But the shared viewing experience is one of the more interesting. You can imagine that, like, watching something together on, say, Netflix is not an experience that I've ever participated in, because it's always been it's like a bad date to me. You know, you're not really going to get to socialize with this person or get to know them if you're just both staring at a movie screen. But I love the idea of emulating something more like a piano bar, like a lounge
Right.
with something happening where we can all socialize. And what's really wonderful about that is that if we're all engaged in a conversation, say 4 or 5 of us, and there's another conversation adjacent to us, we can talk freely without disturbing the people next to us because of the way that we're prioritizing these audio levels. So we can host some really interesting and engaging experiences based on the ways that we can use this technology. So this is just another one of the spaces that we can explore together. If you would like to take a moment to wander around, there's like an astronaut behind you that gives a good example of like the types of 3D content that we can bring in here.
Let's see. Oh, wait, I gotta follow you. Hold on.
You see
There we
me
go.
over here?
Oh, I see astronaut. Yes. All right. Oh, I love it. I love the MTV reference. You get 10 points for that.
Yeah, so we can support any type of 2D or 3D content that might have been developed for use in the metaverse or product development. So CAD models for mechanical engineers, or content that was created by architects or captured using LiDAR scans, like they're doing for some of the new commercial property management. These technologies are becoming more and more available and affordable. So we're trying to stay on the leading edge of what is going to become a lot more common over in the near future.
All right, let me ask you some other interview questions while I still got a few minutes with you here, which is Jesse.
Sure.
What did you do before this, and why did you tackle this of all challenges?
Oh, so my background is actually more in mechanical engineering and industrial design than in this type of technology. But my co-founder and our CEO, Leo Glisick, is a close friend of mine, and he worked previously much more in this space. And we were just talking about the problems that we were all experiencing, our frustrations with the tools that were available at the beginning of the pandemic.
Yeah.
And he posed the question to me, how would you solve this? And the two of us just sort of ideated on this for a short while and decided that this would make, if nothing else, a good pandemic project. So we set a milestone of a few months and a small amount of money. And within a very short amount of time, we were scaling up with a team of engineers to go at this full speed, because our initial tests just exceeded our expectations or our hopes, really, by a large degree. So this has been a full-time endeavor for us and a small team of developers through the entire pandemic.
What's some of your greatest success that you felt like you've had now with this? Just like maybe an event or a moment that you didn't expect, but it makes you feel like you did the right thing.
You know, I think probably one of my proudest moments was actually one of our biggest failures. We had a technical problem at an event that we were hosting early on in our public beta. It was an event that we were proud to support for a great cause, and we experienced a technical problem related to a deployment and a bug that we hadn't found, and it caused the event to run rough. And out of that event came feedback that I wasn't expecting to get, because people were expressing their frustrations, but also their patience with us.
Hmm.
And the way that they expressed their appreciation for the things that we're building really made it clear that if they were willing to put up with this level of frustration, understanding that something had gone wrong with something that we're actively building and breaking daily and weekly to improve on this, that they were still looking forward to using it again as we fixed these problems that we were having. And that was, to me, one of the best indications of the true potential for these
Right.
technologies is that there are going to be growing pains. You know, we're all learning together,
Yep.
especially in the early days, and reaching a point of maturity. Now we have a stable product that solves a very specific problem, and it's really complementary to other offerings in this space. So in that way, we're really looking forward to scaling through partnerships with the larger all-in-one platforms, and complementing the things that are already being done well.
So for you, now that you've attended 2 years of pandemic meetings, what has to happen for you for a virtual meeting to be engaging? What are some of those core elements for you?
Yeah, one of the next hard problem that needs to be tackled is not going to be solved by us. This is one of the partnerships that we're really looking to form is with those organizations that are really excelling with their matchmaking tools. And Braindate is one of my biggest creative crushes. I think they're a fantastic example of an organization that is just doing a phenomenal job of pairing people with it's like platonic speed dating, And
Hmm.
so at Ozzo, I think we've really cracked the hard problem of how to better socialize virtually.
Hmm.
And the next thing though is like encouraging people, giving them permission and the tools to interact in ways that are uncomfortable because they're unfamiliar. And we're still developing an etiquette around these type of interactions.
Yeah.
So it's it's not something that we're going to do on our own. We don't necessarily want to be that social layer, but I think that that's a really integral part of a great virtual event is like who and how you're connecting your attendees with.
Who and how. Yeah. And one thing I've really said a lot in this pandemic is that connection is the key. Right, it really is that
Yeah.
we're humans. We're designed to connect, and like I'm really kind of on this hogwash side of like people say that technology divides us, we spread further apart. I'm like, if that's right, then why is the most popular piece of technology a phone?
Yeah.
Everything designed like communication is like the number one app and purposes for the things that are popular, and so I love that people like you are testing new ways for us to connect like going forward in the future, which would lead me to the next question here, right? You have your roadmap, and I would love to hear something that's beyond your roadmap that's on your wish list. Like, what do you think the future of virtual is going to be? In the 5 and the 10 year, maybe end of your lifetime. What do you think is going to happen?
Yeah. Well, in a lot of ways, I'm hoping that we close the circle and return to something like the way that I romanticized the early days of the internet. I'm just old enough to have grown up without it, right? I was one of the last generations of kids not to have a cell phone. Not to have a cell phone growing up. You had to wait till somebody got where they were going to get a hold of them.
That's right.
But I created a career for myself out of skills that I learned online. Mentors that I had in real life were supplemented by education and experiences that I gained through online communities like forums and bulletin boards.
Oh,
And so, in a lot of ways, what we're trying to do is steer people towards smaller conversations within larger groups of people. And if you scale that, what I mean is that I think the internet is a lot better when it's smaller interactions among people that are brought together by their common interests, the small tribes, the people that really want to share their passions, where you find like-minded individuals. And so the tools that support those kinds of interactions are born out of necessity. But the question I would ask is like, what problem are you solving for?
right.
And that's what we want to be in service of, is like connecting people with folks they're grateful to be in contact with, And wherever the technology goes, I hope it's in support of that and not just pandering to the lowest common denominator, because anything like that addressing that general of an audience, you're gonna lose quality, and we're seeing that in so many areas of the internet.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for that. We do have just a few more minutes. Is there anything spectacular, end on a high note, perhaps, that you'd like us to? I could jump to another place. Is there something that you want to see?
Well, I would like to tell you that we're quickly approaching our general release, and we're introducing an entirely new UI and a bunch of performance enhancements. So I think that might be debuting within about the next month if I had to pin it down, and I'll be really excited to get to share that with you.
Well, good. Thank you, Jesse. And hopefully I can get access to some of your early stuff. I'd love to hack on it and happy to share my viewpoint. I've got a group of very friendly people where we're experimenting on things. Like one of my very good friends, Jimbo Clark, fell in love with Topia, which you might be, familiar with.
Of course.
And of course, you might know our friends at Twine who have been solving the matchmaking problem. And so, we would love to see.
Fan.
I'd love to see what else.
Ozzo is available for public use at no cost right now. We're in a public beta. Anybody can start scheduling or hosting instant events at Ozzo.Events.
Perfect. I'm going to go take a link of that, and I'll arrange we have a happy hour every Friday, 5 o'clock. So hopefully you or one of your members can drop in sometime and maybe show us some other stuff that we haven't seen here.
Absolutely. Would love to.
With that, Jesse, if people could only remember one thing from this interview, what's the one thing you want them to remember?
I think it's just about where we can add value, and that is very specifically socializing and networking at virtual events, the kinds of interactions that would typically happen in hallways and lounges. That's what we want to be a venue for, and we'd appreciate anybody's interest who might like to evaluate us for that purpose. And
of course, where can they find you at? I know we said the website a little bit. Let's go ahead and repeat. Where can they find you at?
That would be Ozzo, OZZO.Events.
Perfect. Jesse, thank you so much for taking a little time from while you're in Spain, one of my favorite countries of all time. And so again, thank you so much for that. And now I'm going to do this fun part, which is I'm going to run away to close this interview. Thanks again, Jesse.
All right, John. Thank you.
Okay, here we go. We're going to see if we can run away. I'm trying to leave oh, wait, I got to put my button here. He's leaving. I'm running away, and now I'm going to turn and I'm going to run around space here. Here I go. I'm running around. There's some other stuff. There's some boots here. Hey, I'm John Chen. Well, look at this, a three-dimensional QR code. What else is going on here? There's a launch one. I'm John Chen. I hope you enjoyed this interview with Jesse Katz while we watch the launch here of a rocket. If you want to be interviewed, hey, there's a link inside of there, engagingvirtualmeetings.com/meet. Select interview, and I'll interview you, and we can showcase you and whatever you are working on. Until next time, we'll see you later.